Oh hey, it's Wes. And last time we talked super nerdy about Godox transmitters and the fine details of what makes them unique. And today, you might remember my previous video about Godox batteries, and surprise, surprise, their chargers are also very unique. So let's get into it. How do we manage these chargers the best way possible? So in my previous video, I mentioned you should not leave your batteries on your chargers. If you want them charged up, you charge them up, pull them off. Let's find out how that actually holds up with some real scientific measurements. So I went in and intercepted the current going to the batteries of each of these chargers to see how they behaved. This was especially difficult with the 8600 Pro charger. I had to chop this cable in half, put my meter in the middle of it, and then later solder it back together. So I took one for the team, guys. Hope you appreciate it. So starting out is actually our newest charger, and it does what you might expect a charger to do. The rest of them don't, spoiler alert. You have the new VC26 charger. This is for the V1 battery as well as the 8100 Pro battery. So when it's done charging, you have a very tiny trickle charge of just 0.13 milliamps. And then, if you unplug it from USB power, all of a sudden, you're only going to be backfeeding or losing power back into the charger at a rate of 0.009 or 9 microamps. It's negligible, would take an incredible amount of time to deplete the battery, and the battery's own internal discharge will be way faster than that, so it's insignificant. So that's nice. You get a little trickle charge, and no problem if you cut power to it. Trickle charge isn't the be-all end-all. You don't want to always be trickle charging your batteries. But if your battery is being trickle charged, it's not going to die in the charger. Here it is. And it probably won't overheat. It's just, you will eventually more quickly wear out your battery if you're trickle charging it a lot. Moving right up along, it's honestly probably the oldest one in this selection. It is the charger for the V860 Mark II. I think it's also the V860 and the V850. So this one, we're getting into some more normal Godox shenanigans. When it's done charging, immediately your battery starts to backfeed into this charger at a rate of 0.681 milliamps. That's a little weird, but it's not a total deal breaker. So that would take 111 days at the voltage that it has charged to discharge all of the power inside your battery. Now, that seems like a long time, but if we compound that with the internal discharge of the battery itself, which is about the same as that, you'd be looking at about 50 days to discharge the whole battery. So let's say you leave it on for a week, you're going to lose maybe 1/5 of the charge in the battery. It's not terrible. It's also not great for your battery to always be charging and discharging. However, if you take this off of power, this will be discharging at 10.4 milliamps. That is a significant amount of discharge and will drain your battery in about a week. At that point, the internal discharge of the battery is no longer significant because this is draining it so fast. And so some people had had the idea to charge the batteries at night, put them on a Wi-Fi or a timed power bar, and originally I thought that was a fantastic idea. Now I don't. I had not even considered that cutting the power to the charger would greatly increase the backfeed potential for the charger. So when you cut that power, even just during one night, you're going to be losing a small amount of the power inside the battery back into the charger. So that's not great. Let's see how the other chargers do. We're moving up. The charger for the 8200, 200 Pro, and the 8300 Pro. This is the C29. I suspect that the charging circuitry in this, even though the voltage is different, is identical to the charging circuitry in our VC18, because when charged, you have a backfeed of 0.688 milliamps. When unplugged, you have a backfeed of 10.4 milliamps. Same deal, but since these batteries have higher capacity, it would last a little bit longer. But again, take it off the charger when you're done charging. Now, up until right now, these chargers, when there is no battery in it, but power is applied to it, AC power, they draw no significant amount of power. There is an amount of power being drawn, but it is insignificant. It is not something that would register on your power meter. It is just the smallest little phantom draw. It's in the milliamps, which, although isn't great to pull out of your batteries, doesn't really matter in the long run on the mains. Moving on up to our big boy chargers. So this is for the 8600 Pro, but this is going to hold true for the 400 Pro and the 8600 battery chargers. This is their big charger. I expected this to behave like a laptop charger, which would be, it reaches the top and then trickle charges. Oh boy, we've got some issues here. As soon as you plug this in, it's drawing 2 up to 3 watts all the time. If there is no battery plugged into this, it is always drawing 2 or 3 watts. Do not leave this plugged in. Devices that are this inefficient, that draw this much power for no reason, should not be trusted plugged in at all times. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, I haven't had any issues with mine after X amount of time. That is anecdotal evidence. What I'm talking about is human safety, life safety. I used to be a fire alarm technician. I have seen the fringe effects of electronics and batteries going haywire. When something draws this much phantom or vampire draw out of the wall, it is building up heat, it is degrading its own components at all times, and should not be left plugged in at all times. Let's get back into this after that word of warning. Once you do put a battery on it, once you've finished charging the battery, and this will charge over 50 watts of power, that is a lot of juice. Your battery starts to backfeed at 2.15 milliamps, which seems like not that much. Now, it is more than these were doing, but it's a big battery, right? That shouldn't matter. This has a lot of capacity. We have to keep in mind the voltage of these batteries. This operates at 33 volts once it's fully charged. That's twice as much as the 8200 battery. And so that much current times voltage gives you actual power. And so when we are drawing almost 4 times as much current with twice as much voltage, that is a lot of power being drained out of this battery. So this would drain your battery fully in 48 days. Again, you got to account for internal discharge. It'll probably be closer to a month. That's not too bad. But wait, if you cut power to this, if you execute the safe power bar method of just shutting off the power bar and leaving it plugged into the battery, it jumps up to 9.13 milliamps, which is comparable to these, but at twice the voltage. So that's twice the power draw. This will last for about 11 days. It will backfeed. Now, caveat, most people will tell you they keep their 8600, 400 batteries charging, or at least the ones that do this, all the time, and they always work. So at a certain point, this will have pulled enough power out of your battery that it will register that the battery is no longer fully charged and kick back into charging again. This is both good and bad. This will prevent your battery from being drained when you want to go to use it, but this is constantly using your battery. It is degrading the cells all day, every day. A couple times a week, this is drawing it down, charging it up, drawing it down, charging it up. Now, to a degree, it's good for a battery to be cycled from time to time. Not as important as it used to be with lithium-ion, they have less memory, but it is good, but not all the time. That is going to prematurely wear out your battery. And if you want to know more about things that prematurely wear out your battery, check my old video about just the batteries themselves. So, there you go. This charger is completely wacky. Don't trust it. With all of them, except for the one for the V1 and the 8100 Pro, charge your battery, unplug the battery from the charger, and set it aside when it is done charging. My personal policy is to never charge when I'm not in the room. I know that is a bit of an onerous policy, but we spend a lot of time editing. My charging station is behind my desk. And also, when you're charging, make sure there is a smoke detector in the room where your batteries are charging at all times. Again, just a basic life safety tip. This one, however, is the only one that you can really trust. I would still not trust it, just as a way of best practices, but this is the only one that gives you a very clean trickle charge and doesn't have any significant phantom draw from the battery when it's unplugged or when it's done charging. Which is ironic, because it's just a little doohickey here. The reason why this can be such a little doohickey is that these all have their AC to DC converters built inside them. And they are all higher power devices, so those converters are larger. This one, however, it relies on external conversion. So it takes that 5 volts in and does what it needs to it. So it can be smaller, but it's also smarter and more reliable. I like that. So there you have it. These are the best practices and what's actually going on under the hood in your Godox chargers. I don't want you to get all high and mighty about these chargers and be like, these are the chargers I can't trust in my life. Personally, I try not to trust any chargers and any rechargeable batteries. Always treat them as though they could start a fire. Keep fire extinguishers and smoke detectors close at hand. It's just best practices. If you have any questions about these chargers, let me know down in the comments. If you need to buy new batteries, new chargers, I have some links down in the comments too to help support this channel and feed my fat cats. So until next time, let's go charge up and take some photos.